Okay, hello everyone, I'm Louise. I'm just going to do part one of our harness talks today. So today we're basically just going to do a little talk about, a little bit more in depth about the reasons why we use the type of harnesses that we use. And I'm just going to use my little buddy here. This is your average canine skeleton. So generally most dogs will look the same under all that fur. Obviously there's differences between facial structure and stuff like that, but generally this would be your standard dog skeleton. So I'm going to turn it around a little bit. One of the main pieces of anatomy that you need to consider when you're looking at buying a harness for running or biking or scooting or anything like that is this. So this is your sternum. This is their sternum. So this is like the equivalent of our chest bone. Okay, so if you look at yourself, you have a nice bone right here. You'll feel it, it's nice and tough. Okay, so this is the canine equivalent here. Some dogs have a more prominent one, and I'll show you it lady in a couple of minutes. Hers kind of comes up a little bit higher and it's a bit more prominent, but generally this is your standard run-of-the-mill sternum. So it's the beginning of the very beginning of the rib cage. So after this you will have underneath, coming from here, you'll have your dog's windpipe or your trachea. So these are the considerations that you need to look at when you're looking at a harness to begin with. Okay, so first of all, you want a harness that's going to rest here and it's not going to come up here. Okay, because if you go just a little bit above your own sternum and press in here, that's your windpipe. So if you press in, it'll make you cough. So it's the same with the dog. So if you have a dog who has a harness that's pressing on the windpipe, it's going to make them cough, it's going to make them very uncomfortable. The second consideration, this is the scapula or the shoulder blade. So as you can see, they have two of them here. So you need to consider when a dog moves, there's not a lot of movement in this, but their shoulder blades need to move too. So when they're running, they need to have free movement here. So if you have something that's coming across here, they're not going to have free movement. So I'm just going to look at one harness first, and I'll show you. So harness number one is a popular brand of harness. They're funky, they're cool, they come in great colours. You can get nice colours, you can get nice little sticky label things that stick onto them and say funny things and cool things. But if we look at the way it's sitting on the dog, now obviously this is a skeleton, so it's not going to fit properly just yet, but if we look, it's fine. It's around the rib cage, seems to be okay there. It seems to be okay here. It's obviously it's hard to tell because it's only a skeleton and you haven't got the muscle and the skin to bulk it out, but it seems to be okay here. It's not really pressing on the windpipe, but here's where we run into the problem. So if you look, these are the shoulder blades here. So if you consider, you can't really see them, but if I lift the harness up, this harness is resting right on the shoulder blades. So if you need your dog to be able to extend their legs properly when they're moving, this is where you're going to run into a problem. Now I know there's not a lot of movement on this leg because it's a skeleton, but if you consider your dog is trying to run properly, it hasn't got a lot of movement across here. Okay, so this is why we tend not to recommend harnesses of this style. You can also get the anti-pull ones, and most of them work on the same kind of basis, that they're cutting across here so that your dog can't physically pull properly and they can't extend their legs properly. Okay, so now we're looking at the Y-shaped harness. So this, obviously the fit is going to be slightly different because this is just bone and it hasn't got the muscle and the skin and all on top of it, but just it's a quick visual just to show you. So this one here fits nicely around the rib cage. It does not impede the shoulders at all. So if you look, not that there's a lot of movement, but they will actually be able to move and this strap won't impede them at all. I'm going to turn her around, show you. So I'm just going to take this off. I'm going to bear in mind this harness is a bit of a wonky fit because she hasn't got any muscle, but if you look, and I'm going to bring her up a little bit closer just to show you. Okay, so there's a little sticky out bone just at the end here. If I go up, you'll see it sticking out just above the harness. Okay, that's the end of her sternum. I say she because she hasn't got a penis bone, so she must be a girl dog. So if you look, this comes down in a Y. It's away from here, so it's not going to be pressing on the windpipe at all. So when she's pulling, she's going to be pulling and she's going to have free movement across her shoulders, and this is not going to come up into the windpipe, which would be here if she had all her bits and pieces. I'm going to show you Lady now. I'm going to bring Lady over, and I'm just going to show you on a real dog what I'm talking about as well, just to give you a better visual, because obviously, you know, it is just a skeleton, so it's not that easy to see, but I just thought at least you can see the bones, you can see what I'm talking about on the skeleton, and now I'm going to show you on Lady what a real dog looks like. Okay, so we have Lady here, my unwilling victim. No, my little demo dog here. So I'm just going to show you. So if we consider Lady, thinking about the skeleton that we were looking at a little while ago, okay, so you have her two shoulder blades here, so her scapula is here, alright, and that will end here. You have her sternum, and she actually has quite a big sternum, so hers ends about here. You can feel that bone, you can feel where it ends. So if you consider when we're looking at a harness to suit Lady, it needs to stop around here, because any further up and you're getting into the spongy soft part of her throat. So if she's pulling, that's going to be pressing on her windpipe. She actually doesn't like me doing that. It's going to be pressing on her windpipe, and it's not going to be very comfortable. Now a lot of dogs will still run, and you'll hear them yeah, I know, you'll hear them gasping, and that's usually a sign that the harness isn't fitting them correctly. So I'm going to try the two harnesses on Lady, and I'm just going to show you what I'm talking about in terms of movement across the shoulders and stuff like that. Okay, so we have Lady wearing one of the harnesses that we showed you previously. So if you look, looks nice in her, nice colour, and you know, fits her okay here. And there's a little bit of space just behind her elbows so that the harness isn't rubbing. But when you look around to the front of it, this is where this whole difference between harnesses comes into play. So if you look, this is her shoulder here. Okay, so this is resting right on her shoulders. So if she wants to move her leg, she can. There's a little bit of movement there, but you're straight into hitting this Velcro strap at the front. Okay, so she's not going to have as much movement as she needs to when she runs. So if we bend her leg a little bit, you'll see her shoulder blade here. Okay, and that's coming up. She's falling asleep in my arms. That's coming out here. So the harness is just rubbing all this part of her shoulder, which is where she needs to be able to flow and move when she's running. Now some dogs will run. I mean, I know if I strapped Lady onto the bike and told her to go, she'd run. She wouldn't be comfortable, but she'd run. But just because she can run and will run doesn't necessarily mean it's the right harness for her. I always try and liken these harnesses to, if you're watching like a rap, you know, if you're watching rappers in a movie or they're in prison or whatever, and they have the jeans that are kind of down around their arses, you know, and the belt is just kind of holding them up. If you try and run a marathon with a pair of those on you, you're not going to have full movement of your own legs across your hips and all that. It's the same thing with the dogs. You'd probably manage it if you could run a marathon anyway. You'd manage it. You wouldn't necessarily be comfortable. So it's the same with the dogs. That, you know, you think of you trying to liken this harness for Lady to running in a pair of those gangster jeans. I don't know what they're called, but you know, it's the same concept. You're not going to have the movement across your own hips, and it's the same here. She's not going to have that full movement across her shoulders. Now this harness in particular, Lady, turn around. I'm just going to turn her around a little bit. She's so happy to help, as you can see. This is also coming up into her windpipe. So her sternum ends here, her chest bone ends here. So she's pulling, this is hitting her in her windpipe too. So that's not going to be comfortable either. So last but not least, we're on to the Y-shaped harness. This is Lady's walking harness, just because it's a slightly different style at the back to her running harness, so it's a little bit different. So if you look at the fit on it, there's a gap between her leg and where the harness starts. It's resting on her rib cage, so it's not, you know, pressing any of her organs or anything like that. Now here's where I was saying about having her whole leg free. So if you look, there's nothing at all covering that whole leg there. Just move your head, Lady girl. Good girl. So this is all free to move in whatever direction it needs to move. So if you look, she can get her leg right out there. She can bend it. She can extend it. Not that she wants to, but she's a bit confused. She's wondering why she's not going out. But if you look, you can see there's the whole freedom here. So that's all freedom of movement. So it's like I said, if you take those, you know, those gangster jeans off and you put on a pair of running leggings, it's the difference that you'll feel between the two pairs. So it's the same here. So if we turn her around a little bit, good girl, Lady. Come on, good girl. So here's your Y shape. She'll lift her head. Okay. It's called a Y shape because it comes down in a Y at the front. So this is actually resting right on her sternum now, right at the end of it. So when she's pulling, it's not pulling, not pulling into her windpipe, which is here. There's plenty of movement here, plenty of you know, plenty of space away, so that when she does pull, it's not going to press into her. It's not going to impede her breathing. She's not going to be gasping, as you do hear a lot of dogs when they're running with a harness that doesn't fit them properly. Good girl, lady. So just show you once more again. This is resting on this bone here. It's not coming up. It's not pressing into her windpipe, so she can run, she can breathe properly. It's not going to bother her breathing. We turn it around. You can see her whole leg is free, right from the beginning of the shoulder all the way down. So there's nothing blocking that movement, and it'll just let her run and be happy. Isn't that right? Yeah. And there we go. Good girl. Thanks. Bye. So I hope that kind of makes it a little bit clearer for you in terms of what we're saying when we're talking about harnesses and why we use the type of harnesses that we use. A lot of people like that whole the gangster jeans reference. It kind of puts it in perspective for them. So our part 2 on harnesses is going to be talking about styles of harnesses that are all Y shaped at the front, and the different types that you can use, and why we often go to certain types of harnesses for different activities, and it depends on how much your dog pulls and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed our little demo today. So if you have any questions, just fire us a PM and we'll get back to you and answer. Thank you.